do I feel like this? Is this my reaction? Is this how I feel about
Well,
Barbie?
folks, I just got back from the theaters seeing Barbie and Oppenheimer. I'm about to review both of them. I'm going to tell you which one of these is the best blockbuster of 2023 and which one is maybe the worst.
I bet he loved our movie, right, Ken?
For those of you who can't wait that long, I'm going to give my review of the Barbie movie in the most Oppenheimer fashion.
What the Run.
I don't have anything that I can set fire to or any props. I can't do it the way that neo-fascist Ken does it. So I don't have my denim jacket. I don't have uh, my get up that I wore to the movie theater to fit into the crowd. So I'm not going to do it that way, nor am I here to rail against it for making men feel insecure. How about Crystal Ball? Crystal Ball fucking hated this movie.
The Barbie movie is atrocious. Look, I am all for creative content with a good political message. White Lotus, loved it. Squid Game, loved it. I'm all for a kids-oriented movie that has jokes that go over the kids' heads. Legos movies, for example, genuinely funny, some real political undertones. Or The Lorax, which is more overtly political but still succeeds as a great kids movie. My kids can sing every line from Let It Grow, and therefore, for better or worse, so can I. This movie was not funny or entertaining or family friendly. I breathed a sigh of relief that I was out of town, so I did not make the mistake of bringing my 6-year-old and having to explain jokes about penises and gynecological exams. It was mildly horrifying to sit alongside little girls in their Barbie merch as they suffered through vulgar humor and a plot that was completely impenetrable for the kids, while still managing to be thoroughly predictable for all of the grown-ups. No star actor or immaculate set design was going to rescue this mess.
She, apparently believed that this was a movie that you could take your kids to. It is rated PG-13. I think it's actually kind of a ridiculous thing to say that the suggestive references and the humor and in it. I mean, I thought that there would be some raunch to it, given what we were getting, just what Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling as these main characters could do and bring to this world of Barbie. But when I went into it, I had no idea what they were going to set up with Barbie Land, and it's sort of why I was astonished with the film, as has been a common reaction for moviegoers that went into it. But this, I mean, to some degree, there's a responsibility. There's a level of personal responsibility that you should have if you're going to approach a movie with the attitude of a parent. Then you need to go do your own research and figure out what exactly is going to be on the screen. And just because you didn't like the movie doesn't mean you should revert to angry parent to couch your disagreement with what you were made to sit through. And by the way, at any moment you can get up and leave. You don't have to sit there for the whole movie. Obviously, Crystal Ball and Ben Shapiro, they're commentators who stuck it out and saw the whole movie so they could do their big review and get into it. And so, I mean, I'll just say that there are sites like Common Sense Media that do lay out what you're going to see. And it's not like the filmmakers are necessarily capable of pulling one over. But that's why we have the MPAA. And like it or not, whether, I mean, I don't really like them, but if you are a parent, I suppose there's something good about having an agency that can say oh, this has sexist suggestive references and your kids might not want to go in. But it wasn't a PG movie, and it's not the children's Barbie flick that anyone thought was going to be coming. And so here's what I have to say. I believe that this movie was some remarkable filmmaking, and I I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I went to see it with my wife, and we were there. And to me, it was one of the better movie going experiences in a long time. And I would liken it to what you hear from people who have seen opening weekend movies like a Star Wars movie, or maybe what people felt like going to see a Black Panther movie. I've seen a really funny line going around that this was like Black Panther for white women, and or Black Panther for women. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Everyone was engaged. People were dressed up. You have people going in pink shirts, uh, people in groups showing up to it. You have cheering, clapping. People are crying. The laughter was uproarious. Just most of the time when you go to a movie, you don't feel that from the audience that is there. And it was opening weekend when I went. I suppose it may not be like that to go on its third weekend, but this is a movie that, as I record this, is probably in the process of crossing a $1 billion mark in terms of making money worldwide. And usually, if a movie makes that kind of money, it's not just because of the corporate marketing that was behind it. You can't have that. There's got to be something more to it. It has to strike a chord with an audience, word of mouth. People are telling each other, go see it, enjoy it. And why exactly is it working, and why does it feel different? I mean, it wasn't like, it could have been just a kind of retread. I mean, I could have seen this being similar in the way of like an Anchorman kind of film, with the comedy not really having that much grit to it, but but you know, landing some laughs here and there, dazzling people with the set, but really not going for it and taking risks. However, Greta Gerwig, who wrote this with Noah Baumbach, the entire script is a lot of risk taking, in my opinion, because it's it's centered on Mattel's most popular brand that has been around for over several decades now, and well over a half of a century. And they go in there, and instead of giving us the commercial that you would expect, that doesn't mean it isn't still a commercial, but instead of giving us this commercial that is selling us a Barbie doll and the mythology around Barbie, the movie proceeds to deconstruct it and tell you about and honor all the things that people have ever said negatively about Barbie, and basically make that a focus of the movie. And Margot Robbie's character is stereotypical Barbie. That's already calling out Barbie for what it is as a product, and how it has been commodifying the body image of younger women for decades. And it already is weighing into that territory of what that has done to people who are not ever going to achieve that in their lives. They're not ever going to look anything close to perfect as it has been presented many a times. And so, I mean, because that's what Barbie girl is. To be a Barbie girl has essentially been synonymous with being that perfect woman. And in this movie, as she leaves the Barbie land, that dream world, and goes to Los Angeles, the nightmare that she is having, the existential crisis, it becomes worse for her as she sees and runs into people who don't like her, who don't like Barbie, and then collides with the corporate world of Mattel that has produced her and made her who she is. And then, of course, you have running parallel what's going on with Ryan Gosling as Ken. There's lots of different Kens, but in this movie, you've got him now finding out when he goes to LA that he could bring patriarchy back to Barbie land. And so as he brings it back there, and we're straddling both worlds, you see that being transformed easily, much in the same way that like it hasn't been that easy in our world to run a a globe where men were able to dictate the way that government was organized, to control uh, other women's bodily autonomy, to make decisions, to decide who has status and who doesn't have status, to there's no equality in pay, or we've had difficulty achieving equality in pay. It does broach some of the social issues, but some of the things that are discussed are more superficial than other issues. And as Ryan Gosling discovers that Barbie Land could be more about Ken because he tasted it in LA, that's what he's trying to turn that universe, that world into for himself. And what we see going on in both of these, in Barbie Land and in LA, are just working those different areas and mining them for the different comedy morsels that are possible, and having a blend of satire, spoof, parody, and referencing Hollywood movie productions. Greta Gerwig has been very open about this. She's a lover of cinema, just like I'm a lover of cinema, and she brings in the different American musicals that she enjoyed, and she weaves them in for her production design. She painted all of these sets with pink paint, and they ran out of pink paint. And so there's the gaudiness, but that's already like a part of the culture of Barbie anyways. And she makes everything perfect. She has these Barbie houses of plastic looking sets that she says are authentically artificial, and she's inspired by the Wizard of Oz. She's these characters, really Barbie's going off on this journey to unearth the man behind the curtain. That man is Will Ferrell, playing the Mattel CEO. And there's other ways of looking at this movie, but just the inspirations of bringing in her favorite French New Wave pictures and treating Margot Robbie's character as one that could emulate some of the different heroines that or female leads in some of these French pictures that have a special place in cinematic history. And so this is a movie in which she goes for it. And I want to play two things here first before I conclude. There's a filmmaker I enjoy who does a better show than I do, where he talks about movies, pop culture. And that's Kevin Smith's weekly show, or show that he does regularly with his friend Mark Bernardine, who's actually in the WGA and has been on strike. And I've been learning some things from their show about the WGA. They go to Comic-Cons and stuff like that. And they're into some productions and art and comic stuff that I don't really care about. But they had a thing that they ran about Barbie. It piqued my attention. And so I just want to play you this, because this is my main takeaway, what Kevin says here. And this is the director of Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Red State, other more weird and eclectic films. But this is exactly what I mean to say when I find this film fascinating.
You get to see the strings in this movie. The fact that Mattel let them go as hard as they go at Mattel. And, it's still, I reel from like, I can't believe they got away with this. We're not even talking a Mad Magazine level of ribbing. This is like a National Lampoon level of ribbing in terms of like what they did with their subject matter, which their subject matter has been a sacred cow for 50 fucking years, man. That Mattel was like, go ahead. Like, take the gloves off, make fun of Barbie, make fun of Barbie's audience, make fun of us. just makes it that much more wonderful because you don't feel sold to. Like when I did the Q&A after the movie, I was like, I mean, we literally just, let's make no bones about it, we just watched a 2-hour commercial. That being said, did you feel sold to?
And I didn't feel sold to. I didn't feel like there was a product that I was expected to go purchase after I watched the movie. I didn't feel that. And that's what Emoji Movie is. It's an atrocious animated movie just crammed with IPs and product placement. And then Angry Birds and pictures of that nature are about just trying to squeeze what you can from the product itself and not trying to place it in the real world, but by placing this fake plastic doll that people play with, giving it a soul and putting it in the real world and saying, what if Barbie existed? What if this existed? I mean, it's sort of like what they've done sometimes with like Christmas holiday movies, where you've had a few successful ones that posit that the North Pole's real and Santa exists. And then when you treat that reality as something that is out there, well, what would it be like for that to exist alongside? I mean, it's kind of like Elf, what Jon Favreau pulled off with Elf. And Will Ferrell was in that movie as well. And what if it existed? Well, if we believe it to exist, then what does it mean for people? And then, what would it be like for someone from that world to get to our real world and judge it? Except in this instance, the real world actually changes Barbie. The real world actually has more of an effect on Barbie than Barbie has an effect on our world. Nothing happens to our world. Our world is not movable. There's nothing that Barbie can change, which is sort of a fascinating thing to think about because in many ways, usually these Hollywood movies would be so bad in their construction that you would have the main character trying to change us, even though that isn't believable. So I didn't feel sold to. I felt that something was being subverted. How subversive was it? I felt its edginess. If you take a step back and you think about it, it probably doesn't go as far as you would like, but it didn't matter because the credits had rolled. I had that reaction emotionally, and you can't change the experience that you have as a moviegoer. And then afterwards, everything that happens is just extra. Like this conversation, you don't plan for that necessarily unless you're Ben Shapiro or Crystal Ball and you're going to do this as part of your show. I didn't actually know that I was going to talk about this. I knew I was going to talk about Oppenheimer, but only as time had gone on did I come back and decide that I really wanted to get on here and talk about this movie and the kind of phenomenon that it has become. And I'll add one more thing to the mix because the friend that Kevin Smith was chatting with, Mark Bernardine, had a really good point.
Yeah, and like the thing that I was astonished by was that I'm not sure you could have made a movie that says all of the things about feminism and patriarchy and corporate greed and all that stuff without it being a Barbie movie. I think Barbie is the vehicle that lets you tell that story. And so, like, if let's say that Greta Gerwig was like, I ought to do like Little Bird, I want to do a thing about the patriarchy and feminism and what that all of that means. Give me $12 million and I'm going to make an indie about it. I don't know if that works as well as it does with a Barbie in it, because Barbie is that totem. It is that fucking fertility god that lets you tell all of those stories and lets you have them mean something because it becomes rooted in our own collective kind of pop memory.
And this is a kind of thing that's happening more so now. I saw this with Prey. I don't know if you've seen this. I really recommend you see Prey. Prey is a movie that exists in the world of Predator, like Alien versus Predator. But it was a movie that was made where a bunch of indigenous people were brought on board to participate. It tells a story from a perspective of indigenous people. You go back into the time of settler colonialism in the United States, and you see the terrorism that is unfolding on the land against Native Americans, against indigenous people, and how they have to fight against that. But thrown into the mix is this fact that a predator has landed and it's going around and it's killing. And what are we going to do? How are we going to navigate that? But in this space, there's also this threat where we are dealing with these colonizers. And that was a provocative, to me, kind of subversive film. You look at it and you wonder how that gets made. I think I have the same attitude about Barbie, like how do you get them to agree to make this film?